Hey, what's up everyone, Eric here. Today I want to make a quick video about cabinet heights and finished countertop heights. So what you're seeing here is a standard base cabinet that's measuring 34.5 from the floor to the top of the cabinet box before countertops. And that's built with a 4¼ inch toe kick. And the toe kick area is this lighted area here. So I'm going to turn off the light just for a little bit so you can see. Pardon my messy kitchen here, but so this little area here that's recessed, that is called a toe kick, and it is literally made so you could kick your toes up against it because that will allow for you to stand a little bit closer to your countertop as you're prepping your food and cooking. So I would say I've worked with about 20 or so different cabinet manufacturers, and majority of them, if not all of them, the standard height on the cabinets are going to be 34.5 to the top of the box, and your toe kick height varies a little bit, anywhere from 4 inches to 4.5 inches tall, and anywhere from 2 to 3 inches recess, and that's pretty common. So for a couple of reasons. Number one, your appliances. If I look at a dishwasher over here, most of your dishwashers are going to fit right underneath and in line with your 34.5 inch cabinets. So that's number one. And then with a typical countertop of 1.5 inch, at least in the Bay Area here, that will flush out to your 36 inch to the top of the appliance. Now, most of the appliances are going to have a little bit of adjustments. They have these little legs that are integrated. I happen to have one plastic one here that's meant for cabinet installation, and I will just put down my camera here for a bit to show you. So they twist on like this, and they're meant for cabinet adjustment. And you can buy different specs of these kinds, so they have different heights and all that. And I'll show you what it looks like installed. Okay, here is a in progress installation of this little toe kick. So as you can see, there's a little black plastic thing, one on each side, and there are a couple in the back corner as well. So that's what they look like, and you could twist and adjust them during installation as you see fit to get the right height. Now back to the kitchen here. So let's say what happens in your installation is that your installer identifies that your floor is off level. So let's say your high point is here and it dips down by about 1/2 inch. Now depending on your building age and you know how it was built and settling, etc., lots of different factors. I say 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch is pretty common, at least from what I've seen in the Bay Area here. So if your floor was off level and it was sloping down this way, what happens is your installer is going to put the cabinet down at the highest point, using that as a reference point, and then they will measure how much of a slope there is and then shim the cabinets up accordingly. If they're using the fixed toe kicks method, where the cabinets are built with plywood or particle board, where the cabinet box actually extends down, which is what I have here. So they have shims behind these toe kick plates, and then if it was a installation with these little plastic feet, then they would basically adjust these to the appropriate height, to adjust for that 1/2 inch difference at the corner, and then shorten it to the minimum height on the right hand side. So that's what they would do, and then the toe kick plate would basically go in front and cover this this plastic feet so you wouldn't see it. So the end result would look more or less like what I have here in the installation. Actually, it will look exactly the same. So with that said, 34.5 inch to the top of the cabinet box, and then countertop. So in the Bay Area here, 1.5 inch thick countertop is pretty common. What I have is a little shy of 1.5 inch, but I'll show you how that's done as well. So put down the camera. So when I say 1.5 inch countertop, it's not really a 1.5 inch all throughout. So usually materials are 3/4 thick, be it granite, quartzite, whatever. They're usually 3/4 thick, and then what happens is I usually tell my installers to have a 3/4 inch thick plywood as a preparation, preparation deck, and then the countertop person will measure, the fabricator will measure the exact size of the plywood and make a template and then cut accordingly. And then in the front end, they would either use a 45-degree, like a miter joint, and the seam would be at the corner here, or they would have a seam right in the front if they were building any kind of ease edge or a bullnose or some sort of pencil edge. So a decorative styling, essentially, that's not a flat 90. So then the seam would be in the front. But in either scenario, they're basically making the front piece of the countertop look thicker and using a thinner material, just 3/4 thick in the back. That was both save on weight and save on costs. Now, and I say 3/4 thick plywood because for our cabinets, we usually have our drawers right up against the top of the cabinet box here. And it's just 1/8 of an inch shy from the very top of the box. So I want to make sure that the countertop stone doesn't lip down too much and end up sitting on the top edge of the drawer front and rub. So that's why I usually recommend the 3/4 thick plywood. So with that said, we've got 1.5 inch thick countertop plus 34.5 inch cabinets. And if you have to shim up the cabinets during installation, because the floor is off level and all that, then you might have an even higher countertop. And so sometimes I get questions like, well, what if we want to bring it down? So if you have the wooden toe kick that are fixed, one way to bring it down is just to cut the toe kick. And you would have to do that all across the board based on what is the plumbing level list of your job site. One thing to keep in mind though, if you're going to cut the toe kicks, let's say instead of a refrigerator here, let's say you have a tall cabinet, you may end up with a situation where you have mismatched toe kick on different heights, and therefore the bottom of your doors may not align across. So that's number one thing to note. And then if you're bringing down the pantry cabinet also, then also keep in mind what's happening at the ceiling. So in this case, I don't have any molding treatment. We have a more modern design, but you may have like a 3 or 4 inch crown molding, in which case you want to make sure that the crown molding have a way to connect to each other without looking distasteful. So if your floor is off, 1/2 inch, your ceiling hopefully is a little bit better. But yeah, that's something else to keep in mind, because unlike just your standard upper and lower cabinets where you have countertop height clearance to adjust with, when you have tall cabinets, that pretty much locks down your whole entire height at the bottom for the toe kick and any molding treatments. And if it was a plastic, these little adjustable feet installation, then you would just adjust them accordingly. You can't really cut them, so you would have to just go to the lowest setting and then hope that's sufficient enough for you. So that's on the cabinet side of things if you want to adjust for a lower countertop height. Second thing you could consider is maybe install the cabinets to the subfloor and then run your finished floor into the toe kick plate here. I like that idea a little bit less, because while you could optimize on that extra 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch on the flooring thickness, what I like less is if there's ever a leak in your dishwasher, for example. I'm gonna bring this over here. So if there's ever a leak in a dishwasher, for example, water can come right out on the finished floor, versus if it was if your cabinets were installed to the subfloor and then I'm guessing your dishwasher will also install to the subfloor, then water gets trapped behind the edge of this finished piece. And I like that a little bit less. But let's say if you did cabinet to subfloor and then dishwasher on finished floor, now you just lost the thickness of the floor. And looking at the top here, our dishwasher is pretty much aligned with the top of the cabinet, and this is maybe a quarter of an inch shy of hitting the bottom of the stone. So those are the other considerations you have to think about if we're going to adjust from and deviate from the standard cabinet heights and all that. Now, last thing you could try to optimize on is your countertop thickness. So earlier I mentioned 1.5 inches is pretty common for the Bay Area. That would be a typical standard here. Now, if you want it to be shorter, you can. Let's say if you want to use, instead of 3/4 plywood, and you just lower it to, let's say, 1/2 inch or even 1/4 inch, and then you do a miter edge. So you have 45 degree here, and then the bottom piece, instead of coming all the way down to 1.5 inches, you can have just 1 inch or 1.25 inches. That's something you would have to discuss with your fabricator. That is a special request, that is not standard. Just like how cabinets are standard at 34.5, anything otherwise would be atypical, and it would be a special request. So you could do that as a shorter edge, and that's what I have here. This is, I think, 1.25 inches. I think it's like a strong 1.25 inches, so maybe close to 1 3/8. And it's not exactly 1.5 inches here. So you could do that, or you could just say forget the whole laminating edge. Just use a 3/4 thick material and then polish the front, and then make that your 3/4 thick edge. Considerations of that, again, your appliances. Make sure your stoves, if it's going to be a freestanding stove, that this fits, and this will align. And try to adjust it as low as possible and see what that looks like. Or in the case of a cooktop on top of an oven installation, you want to make sure that your cooktop height, when installed lower, that the bottom of the cooktop doesn't hit the top of the oven. So those are the other considerations you have for trying to lower the finished countertop height, less than 36. Okay, I hope this is useful, and see you in the next one. Thank you. Bye.